Chapter 1. The night I heard the extra voice. It was rained so hard that night, the church looked like it was sinking into the earth. The wind pushed at the heavy wooden doors, groaning like something alive. I shouldn't have gone in. I knew it the second I stepped inside. There wasn't Holy. It was waiting. Father Malley Saturday inside the confessional, shadow swallowing everything but the thin outline of his face behind the lattice. "Speak, child," he said, his voice low and tired. I opened my mouth to confess, to say the words I had rehearsed all day, but before I could, someone else answered. And it wasn't me. The voice was male, deeper than Father Malley's, but wrong, too even, like every syllable had been weighed before it was spoken. "She is not ready," it said. Father Malley went rigid. His eyes flicked toward me, then away, as if he'd been caught. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice trembling in the small box. No answer, just the sound of slow breathing. Father Malley cleared his throat, his tone shifting into something sharp. "You shouldn't have come tonight." The words hit me harder than they should have. I stared at the thin wooden lattice between us, searching for movement, for any sign that someone else was sitting beside him. But the shape beyond the screen never shifted. "I'm sorry, Father," I murmured, feeling the heat of shame rise to my face. Don't say it," the stranger interrupted, his tone flat but final. "Once you speak, he can't protect you." I felt my stomach turn cold. The rain outside battered the roof harder, almost desperate to get in. "Who are you?" I asked, forcing my voice through the lump in my throat. Silence, then a faint scrape, like nails dragging over the inside of the booth. Father Malley's voice was barely a whisper now. "Go home, lock your doors, and if you hear a knock tonight," he trailed off, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Don't answer." I should have left right then. I should have run into the rain and never looked back. But when I pushed open the door to the booth, the nave of the church was empty. The priest was gone, and the confessional door behind me was still closed. Chapter 2. The stranger's first question. The next night, I told myself I wouldn't go back. I lied. Something about the way the confessional door had stayed closed, even after I left, gnawed at me like a splinter under the skin. By midnight, I was standing in front of the church again, staring at its black silhouette against the moonlit sky. The rain had stopped, but the ground still glistened like it remembered. Inside, the candles flickered low, making the shadows seem heavier. I walked down the center aisle, my footsteps swallowed by the silence. The confessional was there, waiting, as if it had been expecting me. I slid inside, heart pounding. The lattice was dark. No light from Father Malley's side. No sign of movement. I almost turned to leave when a voice slid through the screen. "You came back," it said. Not a question, an observation. I gripped my knees to keep from shaking. "Who are you?" Instead of answering, he asked, "What is your real name?" I frowned. "You already know it." "No," the stranger replied, his tone calm but cutting. "The name your mother never told you, the one you were given before you were born." A strange chill spread through my chest. I wanted to laugh, to call him insane, but the word stuck. Somehow, I knew it wasn't guessing. I began. He interrupted me with a slow inhale, like he was tasting the air between us. "You've forgotten, but I haven't." I pressed my palms to the wood, trying to steady my breath. "Where's Father Malley?" "Gone," the voice said. "He doesn't hear you anymore. Only I do." The shadows seemed to press closer, and a faint tapping began inside the wall. 3 slow knocks, as if from deep underground. "You've carried a sin you don't even know yet," the stranger murmured. "I can tell you what it is, but once you hear it, you can't undo it." My throat tightened. "Why me?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, he whispered my name, not the one I lived with all my life, but a word I'd never heard before, and yet recognized instantly, as if it had been sleeping inside me. It felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't know I had. Then the tapping stopped, and from outside the booth, in that empty church, a door slammed shut. Chapter 3. The candle that wouldn't die. I didn't sleep that night, even when I shut my eyes. The stranger's voice clung to me, whispering that impossible name over and over, like it belonged more to him than to me. By morning, I thought maybe the church had been some fever dream, until I walked past it on my way to the market. Through the half-open door, I saw it, one candle, still burning. It stood beside the confessional booth I had Saturday in. Its flame steady despite the breeze curling in from the open doorway. The other candles had burned down to wax puddles, blackened wicks like tiny corpses. But this one looked untouched, as if it had been lit just seconds ago. A shiver ran through me. I stepped inside. The air smelled wrong, not incense, not smoke, something sweeter, heavier. It reminded me of rotting flowers left alone on a grave. "Don't touch it," a voice rasped behind me. I turned. An elderly nun stood in the shadows, her hat frayed, eyes sharp as needles. I didn't recognize her. "If the flame's still here," she said, "so is it." My mouth went dry. "Oh." Her gaze flicked toward the confessional. "The one you let in." I wanted to laugh it off, to tell her she was mistaken, but the way she looked at me, not with suspicion, but pity, kept me silent. "You should leave," she continued. "He'll want you to come back tonight, and you will." "How do you know?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked toward the altar, her step soundless on the stone floor. I glanced back at the candle. The flame seemed to bend toward me, like it was breathing. Without thinking, I leaned closer and the wax hissed, spitting a droplet onto the floor. It wasn't wax. It was red. I stumbled back, heart slamming in my chest. The drop spread slowly across the stone like it had a pulse. And then I heard it, a faint scrape inside the booth. Nails on wood, exactly where I'd Saturday before. The nun was gone. The church door had closed, and the candle still burned. Chapter 4. The sin he wanted me to say. I swore I wouldn't step foot in that booth again, but the candle never went out. For 3 nights, I walked past the church, hopping, praying to see the flame finally die. It didn't. Each time, it burned as if mocking me, daring me to return. On the 4th night, I gave in. The church was empty. Shadows stretched thin across the pews like old skin. My footsteps felt loud as I approached the confessional, the air colder with each step. I slid inside and closed the door. The darkness welcomed me. "You took your time," the stranger said. His voice was quieter now, but sharper, like a knife pressed just enough to break skin. "I didn't come here for you," I whispered. "Yes, you did." I swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" He paused, as if savoring the question. Then, "A confession. I already told you, not the past." He interrupted. "The one you haven't committed yet." The words coiled in my stomach like something alive. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," he said. Soon, a faint tapping began again inside the walls, 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I pressed my back against the wood, my breath quickening. "What sin?" I asked. He leaned closer. I could feel the weight of him on the other side of the lattice. "You will take something that isn't yours. Not money, not life. Something far more permanent." "I'm not going to." "You will," he whispered, almost tender. "Because you've already decided to." "I haven't," I shot back, my voice trembling. "Yes, you have," he said, his tone flat. "You just don't remember making the choice." I felt my nails dig into my palms. "Why me?" His answer came soft, almost like a prayer. "Because you Saturday where she was meant to sit." I frowned. "See." "Oh." A smile crept into his voice. "The one who carried your sin before you were born." The tapping stopped. The air grew thick, heavy, like the walls were closing in. And, from the shadows outside the booth, a voice I didn't recognize, female, trembling, whispered my name. The stranger chuckled. "She's here now." Chapter 5. The first missing parishioner. Her voice followed me home that night. It wasn't loud, more like a murmur tucked just behind my thoughts, but I could still hear it, repeating my name with the careful rhythm of someone counting the beats of a prayer. I told myself it was just my imagination. I told myself a lot of things. None of them helped me sleep. The next morning, the town was whispering. Someone had gone missing. His name was David Riley, a man I'd known my whole life, a quiet, awkward figure who always Saturday near the back during Mass. People said he'd come to the church the previous night. Some said they saw him enter the confessional after me. None saw him leave. By noon, the priest's house was surrounded, not by police. There were no police in our little town, but by neighbors clutching rosaries and looking at the church like it had grown teeth. I didn't go near them. I couldn't, because I knew the exact booth David had stepped into. I knew the seat was still warm when I left it that evening. Against every scrap of sense I had left, I went back. The candle was still there, still burning. When I slid into the confessional, the stranger didn't greet me right away. It was almost worse, the silence thick, stretched tight. Then, without warning, his voice slid through the lattice. "Is Saturday here after you?" My heart thudded against my ribs. "David," I whispered. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, I heard a sound I couldn't place, like cloth tearing slowly underwater. "What happened to him?" I asked. "He told me a sin that wasn't his," the voice replied, "and now it is." I wanted to push the door open and run, but something in his tone rooted me to the seat. "You took his place," the stranger continued, "and he took yours." "That doesn't mean anything," I snapped, my voice still loud in the booth. "It will," he said. "When you can't find your way home." The tapping began again, faster this time, urgent, and through the thin wood. I heard a second sound join it. Breathing, not his. Someone else was in there with him. And then, from the darkness beyond the screen, I heard David's voice, faint, trembling whisper, "I'm sorry." The candle flickered for the first time. Chapter 6, The Letter Under the Pew. I avoided the church for 3 days. Every time I passed it, I kept my head down, refusing to look at the windows, afraid I might see a face pressed against the glass. But the candle still burned. I could feel it, even without looking. On the 4th day, I made a mistake. I went inside. It was early morning. No one else was there. The air was stale, as if the walls themselves hadn't breathed in weeks. I told myself I was only going to pray, that I'd keep my distance from the confessional. But halfway down the aisle, I noticed something wedged under the pew, where I usually Saturday, the one directly across from the booth. A folded piece of paper. I knelt and pulled it free. The paper was old, the edges soft, but the ink was fresh. My fingers shook as I unfolded it. It was a letter, a confession, written in my handwriting. Only, it wasn't anything I ever written. The words described a crime so vivid I could smell it, the sour rot of earth, the metallic taint of blood. It spoke of a night I hadn't lived yet, of an act I swore I would never commit. The date at the top was 1 week from now. My stomach churned. I crumpled the paper, ready to toss it aside, but something caught my eye at the bottom. A signature. My name. Not the one I'd always used. The other one, the one the stranger had whispered in the booth. My hands went cold. I heard the creak of wood behind me and turned. The confessional door was open. Just a sliver. Inside, it was too dark to see anything, but I could hear breathing. Low, measured, waiting. I backed away, clutching the letter, but my heel caught on the stone step and I nearly fell. That's when I saw it, the candle, still burning beside the booth, its flame bending toward me like it knew my face. And then, the tapping. 3 sharp knocks from inside the booth, followed by my own voice, whispering, "It's almost time." Chapter 7, The Mass with 2 Voices. Sunday morning came like a sentence I couldn't appeal. The town was restless. People spoke in hushed tones, glancing at the church with a mixture of dread and duty. No one wanted to be there, but no one dared stay away, and neither did I. The air inside was heavy, almost damp, like the walls had been sweating. The candle still burned beside the confessional, though someone had tried to move it to the altar. Wax streaks marked the floor like a trail of blood. I took my seat near the back. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Father Malley entered, his robes dragging across the stone, his face pale. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. The service began normally. The familiar cadence of prayer, the measured rise and fall of his voice. Then, halfway through the homily, it happened. A second voice joined his. It came from his mouth, but it wasn't his voice, deeper, deliberate, each word dripping with an almost mocking calm. It spoke in perfect unison with him at first, like a shadow mimicking a step, and then it began to speak over him. The congregation shifted, uneasy. Some glanced at each other, whispering. Others bowed their heads lower, as if hiding their faces could block out the sound. "You've all come to confess," the second voice said, cutting through Father Malley's words. "But none of you came to repent." The priest frowned mid-sentence. His eyes darted to the side, as if listening to something only he could hear. "Leave this place," the voice continued, still pouring from his lips. "All except her." My chest tightened. I knew it meant me. Father O'Malley's hands trembled as he gripped the pulpit. His own voice finally broke through, weak, desperate. "Stop, please." But the stranger laughed, a low, steady sound that seemed to crawl around the rafters. The room erupted in movement. Some parishioners fled, clutching their children. Others knelt and began to pray aloud, their voices shaky. Uneven. I couldn't move. My body felt pinned to the pew, every muscle taut. The stranger's voice lowered to a whisper that still carried to every corner of the church. "Tonight, you will speak your sin, or I will speak it for you." Then Father O'Malley collapsed. The silence that followed was worse than the voice, and through it, I heard the faint tapping, not from the confessional this time, from beneath my seat. Chapter 8. The stranger steps out. I didn't go to the church that night. I told myself I wouldn't. I locked my door, shut the curtains, and tried to drown out the memory of Father O'Malley collapsing, with that voice still on his lips. But around midnight, the tapping started. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 more. Not on my door, on my window. I frowsy in bed, heart thundering. My apartment is on the 2nd floor. When I finally forced myself to look, the street outside was empty, but across the square, the church door stood open, spilling a thin slice of candlelight onto the cobblestones. Something pulled me toward it. Not curiosity, something heavier, like a rope around my chest. My feet moved before my mind could stop them. Inside, the air was colder than the night. The pews loomed like rows of coffins. The candle was still beside the confessional, flamed steady, waiting. The door to the booth creaked open, and he stepped out. It wasn't the first time I'd seen a man in shadow, but this wasn't shadow. His outline was blurred, like smoke trapped in the shape of a person, and yet my eyes refused to look away where his face should have been. There was only a smear, a distortion that shifted if I stared too long, a mouth that wasn't always in the same place, eyes that blinked out of sync. He moved like he wasn't bound to the floor, his steps soundless. "You shouldn't be able to leave," I said before I could stop myself. "I was never inside," the stranger replied. His voice was sharper now, more solid, but no less wrong. "The booth is just where you see me." He walked past me toward the altar. Wherever he stepped, the candlelight bent toward him. As though the flame recognized its master, I forced the words out through my tightening throat. "What do you want from me?" He stopped, turning his head, or at least the idea of his head, toward me. "For you to finish." "Finish what?" "The sin you began the night you Saturday where she was meant to sit." The church door slammed shut behind me, though no one touched it. He moved closer, and I realized with a sick twist in my stomach that his shape was starting to look more like mine. Chapter 9. The confession I overheard. I told myself I wouldn't step inside the booth again, so I hid in it instead. It was the only place I could think to be, the only way to hear what he said when I wasn't the one confessing. I came just before midnight, slipping through the unlocked side door of the church. The pews were empty, the air thick with the smell of candle wax and damp stone. The candle beside the booth burned as it always did, steady, patient, eternal. I crept inside the other side of the confessional, the side Father O'Malley would usually sit in, my knees pressed against the wood, my breath slow and shallow. Minutes passed. The church was silent. Then, the door opposite me creaked open. A woman entered. I couldn't see her face through the lattice, just a pale blur in the dark. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied, as though she practiced what she was about to say. "I need to confess," she whispered. The stranger's voice answered, calm and deliberate. "Then tell me." "I saw her," the woman said. "I saw how she dies." My skin went cold. The woman began to describe a night cold, wet, lit by a single candle. She said, "I was kneeling in the aisle of this very church, hands bound, lips moving as if in prayer. Then someone stepped out of the shadows behind me." She didn't describe what he did. She didn't have to. The way her voice broke told me enough. "When?" the stranger asked. "Soon," she said. "Very soon." I pressed my back to the wall, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to burst out, to demand who she was, but I couldn't move. The stranger spoke again, his tone almost tender. "Do you understand now?" "Yes," the woman breathed. "It has to be her. It was always meant to be her." And then she said my name. "The other one?" My nails dug into the wood. The woman stood, her figure retreating from the booth. The door shut softly behind her. Silence. Then, in the dark, the stranger whispered to me through the lattice, even though I hadn't made a sound. Even though he shouldn't have known I was there. Now you know why I'm here. Chapter 10, The Blood on the Lattice. I didn't sleep after what I'd heard. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her malforming my other name. I heard the stranger's voice curling around the words like smoke, and I knew whatever was coming, it wasn't something I could hide from. Still, I went back to the church. It was empty when I arrived, just the steady candle burning beside the confessional. I told myself I was only going to look inside to prove there was nothing there but wood and shadow. I slid into the booth. The air was cold and still. I pressed my fingers to the lattice, the thin wooden grid separating me from the other side. That's when I felt it wet. I pulled my hand back and stared. My fingertips glistened in the dim light. At first, I thought it was candle wax, but the color was wrong. Dark, thick, blood. A single drop slid down the wood, then another, faster. Soon it was seeping through the tiny holes, running in slow, deliberate lines, as if the lattice itself was bleeding. From the other side, the stranger spoke. "It's yours." My stomach twisted. "No, not yet," he said. But soon, the smell hit me next, copper and rot, heavy in my throat. I wanted to push the door open, to escape, but my body wouldn't obey. Then the wood under my hand shifted, softened. I looked again and saw that the lattice wasn't wood anymore. It was flesh, pale, faint, pulsing, and the blood wasn't dripping from it. It was dripping from me. When I looked down, my wrists were bound. The pew beneath my knees was gone. I was kneeling on cold stone. Around me, the church was dark, save for one candle burning far down the aisle. I heard footsteps behind me, below, even. The stranger's voice was closer now. No lattice between us. "Do you see it?" I tried to turn, but my neck felt locked. My breath came fast, ragged. "You can't change it," he whispered. "You can only finish it." The candlelight bent, and I saw his shadow stretch across the floor, reaching for me. Then I was back in the booth, alone. The blood was gone, but the lattice still pulsed. Chapter 11, The Day the Church Locked from Inside. It began with the bells. At noon, when the sun was high and the square was crowded, the church bells started ringing on their own. They weren't the clear, solemn notes we heard on Sundays. These were frantic, uneven, like someone was yanking the rope at random. By the third chime, the square had fallen silent. Everyone stared at the church. Its heavy oak doors were shut tight. Father Malley was nowhere in sight. A few men from the parish tried to open the doors. They pushed, they pulled, they even tried the iron key from the sacristy. Nothing worked. It was as if the wood itself had fused to the stone. Then we heard it, a laugh. It wasn't loud, but it carried. It didn't sound like it was coming from the bell tower or the altar. It sounded like it was inside all of us, crawling through our ears. The sound was low and deliberate, pausing in strange places, as if savoring the silence between each breath. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else read. I didn't move. I couldn't. My eyes stayed fixed on the tall stained glass window above the entrance. Behind the colored panes, a shadow passed, tall, narrow, moving too smoothly to be human. The bells stopped, and then came the tapping. 3 sharp knocks from inside the church door, loud enough to rattle the iron hinges. A voice followed, muffled but clear. Only she may enter. I knew it meant me. I felt the weight of 100 eyes on my back, but no one spoke. No one tried to stop me. I stepped forward. The moment my hand touched the door, the locks gave way with a groan. The air that spilled out was cold, damp, and wrong like the inside of a tomb. The nave was empty. The pews were bare. The candle beside the confessional still burned, its flame swaying even though there was no breeze. Somewhere deeper inside, a door shut slowly, and then the laugh came again, this time from just behind me. Chapter 12, The Final Confession. The door shut behind me with a sound that felt final. I turned, but no one was there. The church was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your skin, making every heartbeat feel like a shout. The candle beside the confessional flickered once, as if acknowledging me. "You came," the stranger's voice said, not from the booth this time, but from everywhere at once, the rafters, the altar, the stone beneath my feet. I forced myself toward the confessional. The closer I got, the more the air thickened, as if I were walking underwater. I slid inside. There was cold against my back. The lattice was black, no end of movement on the other side. You have one chance, he said. Speak it, and it will be yours. Stay silent, and I will speak it for you. My throat tightened. I don't even know what it is. You do, he said. You've always known. You've just been waiting for me to hear it. The tapping began, 3 knocks, then 3 more, then silence. My palms were slick. I felt that rope around the chest pull again, urging me forward, urging me to say something I couldn't name. And then I heard her, the woman from before. Her voice was closer now, almost touching my ear. If you don't speak, you take her place forever. I didn't know who her was. Maybe I didn't want to. The stranger whispered my other name, the one that made my bones feel colder each time I heard it. Confess, he said. My mouth opened. The words came before I could stop them. They weren't mine. They were older, heavier, sharp enough to cut the air. I didn't even understand them, but I knew what they meant. The moment I finished, the candle went out. The darkness wasn't empty, it was full. I could feel him in it, moving. Now, the stranger said, "You're ready." The booth door swung open. I stepped out into a church that wasn't my church anymore. The pews warped, the walls breathing, the altar wet with something dark. And standing in the aisle was someone who looked exactly like me. She smiled.
Epilogue, the candle in the other church. I don't remember leaving. One moment, I was standing across from her, my reflection in flesh, and the next, I was outside. The church doors closed behind me. The square was empty. No bells. No voices. Just the stillness of a world holding its breath. I thought it was over. Until I saw the candle. It burned in the window of another church. Not mine. Not even in my town. I didn't recognize the building. Its steeple leaned to one side. Its stone blackened by years of weather. But the flame was the same. Steady. Patient. I don't remember walking toward it. But suddenly I was at the door. Inside. The pews were filled. People I'd never seen before knelt in silence. Their heads bowed. Every single one of them turned to look at me at the exact same moment. The confessional was at the far end, half hidden in shadow. Its door stood open, and sitting inside, waiting, was her. Not the stranger. Her. The one who looked like me. She smiled again, and for the first time, I understood why. It was my turn to take her place. I stepped forward. The door closed. The candle kept burning.